Hey y'all, it's Courtney, and this is my Reading Life Autobiography. Number 1, how did you learn to read, and who or what influenced your relationship to reading in and out of school? So I learned to read years and years ago when I was in daycare. I was in daycare from the time that I was an infant all the way till I was 12 years old. I was at the same daycare this whole entire time. And they were very instrumental in my reading life because there were books available everywhere. And there was always a time to read, whether by yourself or in a whole group setting. So that is where my reading life began. My sister influenced my relationship to reading outside of school. I really didn't have a problem reading inside of school, but I definitely never wanted to go home and read when I got out of school. And so that was kind of a problem, but she was very instrumental in me developing a relationship with reading outside of school. I saw that she read all the time, and the books that she was reading seemed really, really interesting. And it made me want to read them. And so when I started reading them, I couldn't stop. I was always getting books, always going to the library. When I got older, I began ordering books. And then recently, I'm using my phone to read, but that's another story. But anyway, yes, reading outside of school was definitely influenced by my sister. Number 3, what right now are your core beliefs about reading instruction in the secondary classroom? So I believe that, of course, every kid can read. But I do believe that every kid has to find that it book for them. Like, I don't believe that every kid can read everything, if that makes sense. Like, they can read everything, but they won't connect to it. They won't understand it because they won't be interested in the context. They won't be interested in what they're reading about. So that is my belief. I believe that everybody has to find that it book to kind of spark their reading interests, because otherwise they're just not going to do it, and then they're not going to get it either. Number 4, what titles in particular are a part of your reading timeline when you consider your development as an adolescent? I read a lot of books. I would say there's a couple titles I will point out that was in my reading timeline as I was developing. I will say The Giver was definitely one of them. There is actually some picture here. So some of these books here was a part of my reading timeline. The Harry Potter books, The Catcher in the Rye. Yeah, that's it from here. But yeah, I would say those are some of the books that was in my reading timeline. And then there were some other books that I probably shouldn't have been reading. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Number 5, what are your hopes and fears for reading instruction for young adolescents you will encounter in your teaching life? This is one of the things that I was discussing with my group. I just feel like I don't want to make them read. And I think that's a problem that I'm dealing with myself. Like, I know that if you try to make a student read, they'll read it. Like, they'll read the words that's on the paper, but they won't really understand what they're reading because they're just trying to get through it just because you said do it. So I never want to make them read. Like, I would rather them read on their own, because if they pick up a book on their own or they read on their own, then then that means that they're into it. That means that they're going to comprehend what's going on. They're going to make connections, and they will become more knowledgeable because they're paying attention to what they're reading. Those are my fears. Just I don't want to be that teacher that has to make my students read, even though I know that it may be necessary in some situations. I just fear that I would have to do that more than I would like to. My hope is that I can become a teacher that will make my students want to read. Like, I want them to fall in love with reading, just as I did when I was an adolescent. So I'm really hoping that I can do something or say something that will make them want to read or want to find that it book for themselves. That is my hope. That is all I have, and I thank you for listening.